and that feeling.
Yes, that is when I'm very, very excited. That's going to be a very beautiful skyscraper, one that was designed to be as Minneapolis skyscraper as much as we could make it so.
What does that mean in Minneapolis? What's a Minneapolis?
Well, I tried very hard and spent a great deal of time in understanding Minneapolis, getting a feel for the city, for the people, for its architecture, for its climate, for its conditions of light, for the coloration of the city, and the design grew very slowly about it. We had actually what it turned out to be a very lucky break. At the beginning I thought it was terrible because we had designed the project before completely for that whole block.
We have just time for a very brief description of your very lucky break.
Okay, which is what we designed it originally for a different combination of clients and a slightly different site, although in the same place. The client changed, the site changed, and we had to redesign it all over again with a different configuration. So that meant that I did it a year and a half after the first one, where I had a very deep and rich understanding of the city, and I could do it so that the ideas just flowed from within me in a much stronger and better way.
I see. So every project should have a delay of a year and a half, and maybe, you don't know, that might bring a greater or new things to the project. I would advise everyone, once the World Financial Center is totally completed, it's partially completed now, to make a trip to see it, because it is amazing, new, inspirational, modern architecture that I know everyone will enjoy. And we look forward to maybe traveling to Minneapolis or to Boston. There's a new project in Boston. But to all of your projects, we thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing your new buildings in the future.
Thank you, Nancy.
Let me interrupt you, because I want to know how you utilize this. For instance, let's talk about your World Financial Center in Battery Park in Lower Manhattan, which is a marvelous, exciting complex, which I hope everyone can go to visit, because it is truly, for instance, the glass enclosure, which is as much height as it's not a Grand Central Station, it's just extraordinary and very exciting to be inside. But so how did you treat that complex?
Well, thank you for your comment. I happen to agree with you. Very clearly in that building, I tried to do two things. One is, indeed, to learn from all of the good ideas and understandings about high-rise office buildings in our cities that have come to us from the international style. And indeed, if one respects history, one has to understand the modern movement very clearly, because that's the main historical source for what we do today. But also in downtown Manhattan there was another history, also a very modern history, which is the history of the traditional, if we can call them traditional today, American skyscrapers. Those great, beautiful, optimistic, lovely spires that were built in the 1920s and early 1930s in downtown Manhattan.
You see, you're right. The Americans were still optimistic, and they had spires ascending to heaven, but the international style cut the roof flat on the top.
Right. Well, that is, see, the idea of the flat roof was an aesthetical idea that had two purposes. One was to free itself from the tradition of the home and the anthropomorphic quality of the home, with a pitch roof, creating a center occupied by man or woman, human being. And the flat roof makes it parallel to the ground, and it creates a more rational living space, a bit freer of the anthropomorphic tradition. But this was not originally. There were very few examples of very tall vertical buildings, because the skyscraper is not a European tradition.
No. What about how would you describe the base of these buildings and how they start out fat and solid in fact, and then they...
Well, I wanted my buildings to be very clear, rational, and at the same time to respond to two things. One is the responsibilities of the buildings to the ground. Buildings have to make good sidewalks. That is where we live as people.
Yes.
When you go to the streets, you like to go by shops.
Exactly.
You don't want a series of empty plazas one after another.
Right.
An occasional beautiful plaza is enough. So these buildings come and respond to the ground. Take
And
the
their
shape of
shops
the ground.
and their trees and
Exactly.
places to sit.
Exactly.
And they're beautiful foyers where you walk in and marvelous marble. One of the things that you have in your buildings are, and unusual, is to reintroduce to public spaces patterns, floral patterns, geometric patterns on the inside of the rotunda. And how do you dare to do that? No one that I know of in public spaces, in